Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've got news for you. Robocalls will bury us all. They'll be going on long after you and I are dead. And I'm convinced of that. I've ranted about them before. But Jacob sent me an article, and I missed this the first time it passed. But I'll admit this is a little bit older of a story, but from the Wall Street Journal earlier this year, the FCC has fined robocallers $208 million. So far, of the $208 million they've fined robocallers, they've collected a little under $7,000. $7,000 out of $208 million. The fines are ineffective. The FCC is ineffective. The phone companies don't care, and hence, that's why my phone rings off the hook all day long with robocallers. Both my cell phone, my desk phone, doesn't matter. They just call. They know that no one's coming after them. So, the story is written by Sarah Krause. It came out in March of this year. America's telecommunications watchdogs have levied hefty financial penalties against illegal robocallers and demanded that bad actors repay millions to their victims. Years later, little money has been collected. Since 2015, the Federal Communications Commission has ordered violators of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which is a law governing telemarketing and robodialing, to pay $208.4 million. That sum includes so-called forfeiture orders in cases involving robocalling, do not call registry violations, and telephone solicitation violations. So far, the government has collected $6,790. Our tax dollars hard at waste. I'm talking about the fact that we have government officials whose job it is to go collect this money, and they've failed so far. That's according to records obtained by the Wall Street Journal through a FOIA request. The total amount of money secured by the FTC through court judgments in cases involving civil penalties for robocalls or the National Do Not Call Registry-related violations, plus the sum requested for consumer redress and fraud-related cases, is $1.5 billion since 2004. Of the $1.5 billion, it has collected $121 million of that total, said Ian Barlow, coordinator of the agency's Do Not Call program. So they've collected about 8% of that money. The agency operates a national Do Not Call registry and regulates telemarketing. And of course, you know that the National Do Not Call registry is actually just a phone list of numbers that the robocallers use to scam people. They actually check that list and use those numbers to call people. And I've had people tell me that they were not getting that many calls. They got on the Do Not Call list and suddenly the phone exploded because it's a free list of phone numbers that are all active. These are real good phone numbers. Why random dial when you can call real people? Just go to the Do Not Call list, use that as your phone directory, and you're going to save money if you're a robodialer. The number stands on its own. We're proud of it, Mr. Barlow said. We think our enforcement program is pretty strong. We think your estimate of what pretty strong is wrong. An FCC spokesperson said his agency lacks the authority to enforce the forfeiture orders that it issues and has passed all unpaid penalties to the Justice Department, which has the power to collect the fines. The power, but apparently not the ability to do so. Many of the spoofers and robocallers the agency tries to punish are individuals and small operations, he added, which means they are at times unable to pay the full penalties. So what? Come down on them like a ton of bricks. Ruin their lives. They're ruining ours. The FCC spokesperson said fines serve to penalize bad conduct and deter future misconduct. Of course, that's not what's happening. Spokesperson for the Justice Department, which can settle or drop cases, declined to comment on why they've been so incapable of following through on this. The dearth of financial penalties collected by the U.S. government for violations of telemarketing and auto-dialing rules shows the limits the sister regulations face in putting a stop to illegal robocalls. It also shows why the threat of large fines can fail to deter bad actors. It's an imaginary number, so who cares how big it is? It's great that we have these laws. It's great that we have public enforcement. But because there are so many calls and so many callers, the public enforcement is a joke, said Margot Saunders, Senior Counsel at Consumer Advocacy Group National Consumer Law Center. It doesn't even make a dent. There were 26 billion unwanted robocalls made to U.S. mobile phones in 2018. 26 billion in 1 year. By one measure from robocall blocking app Hiya. That's the number they have. Another company that offers such services, Umail Inc., puts the number of unwanted and illegal robocalls made in the U.S. last year even higher at nearly 48 billion. phone calls. I've gotten two this morning. AT&T Inc. and other large wireless carriers are currently working to implement a call verification system by the end of the year. It's November. That regulators and telecom industry executives say will help consumers identify legitimate calls. That system won't block calls, but will signal that the caller has the right to use a given number and that it hasn't been spoofed. Yeah, right. The FCC and FTC say there are challenges to collecting penalties for robocall-related wrongdoing. Small illegal operations can quickly close up shop and change their names. Woo! Who could figure that out? Some are based overseas. Fines are a deterrent on legitimate companies that have real assets in the U.S., said Daniel Del Nero, a senior attorney at Squire, Patton Boggs in Atlanta, that advises companies on consumer class action suits related to the TCPA. For a spam caller or overseas operator, that's really just pushing for social security numbers or bank account information. It's less of a deterrent because they don't really have anything that could be collected anyway, Mr. Del Nero said. In many FTC cases involving civil penalties, the agency secures judgments for large fines and settles for a smaller sum, contingent upon the accused person or company being transparent about their assets. Congress requires the agency to consider an individual's ability to pay. In the 2017 case of a recidivist robocaller that placed illegal robocalls for nearly a decade, two defendants faced civil penalties of $2.7 million in a California suit filed by the FTC. They were each ultimately ordered to pay $225,000 or less if their financial disclosures were complete and accurate. And we don't know if they paid them. Ajit Pai, chairman of the FCC, said in an interview on Robocalls earlier this month that in the past, few financial penalties have been collected, but that he is working to change that. It is important to send a signal to other would-be robocallers that you're not going to be able to get away with it. Yeah, and the way you'd send that signal is to actually stop them. And since you haven't stopped them, you ain't signaling nothing. Still, none of the $202 million demanded in what the FCC calls forfeiture orders against alleged rule breakers during Mr. Pai's tenure has been collected. So the guy's batting zero. See, the way you prove you're a good batter is you go up the plate and you get a hit. And if you're batting zero, don't tell me that you're going to go up the plate and get a hit until you actually do it. So again, none of the $202 million demanded in what the FCC calls forfeiture orders against alleged rule breakers during Mr. Pai's tenure has been collected. That's zero out of $202 million. The agency in May of 2018, for example, fined a Florida-based company and its top executives $120 million for making 100 million illegal robocalls during a 3-month period in 2016. Agency records as of late December indicate that no funds had been collected. Yeah, so we've got laws in the books. People are getting fined for breaking those laws, and no one's collecting the fines. That's sending a really strong signal to these ne'er-do-wells and scofflaws. I just wanted to use those two words. What can I tell you? So, again, Jacob sent me the story. It's out of the Wall Street Journal. Some of that's from earlier this year. But like I said, in the story, they said by the end of this year, they're going to have something in place that's going to save us all from robocalls. And I'm just here to tell you that it's November 2019. Ain't nothing been done. My phone still rings, and it's always a robocall. Hey, this is your credit card company calling to let you know you can get lower rates. Calling about that warranty. Hey, how's your health care? Or crazier. We found a car burning on the Mexican border with your social security number inside of it. Well, quite frankly, when my social security number learns to drive, I'll teach it to not drive so close to the Mexican border that the car catches on fire. So there you go. Jacob, thanks for passing along the story. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Lehto's Law. And no, I'm not a robot.